Welcome to On the Brink, a fresh lens to take you and your business to new heights. Hi, I'm Andi Simon, your host, and I am so excited to bring to you, our great listeners, people who can help you see, feel, and think in new ways. As you know, my job is to help you change. And change today is moving faster. And between the pandemic, our civil unrest, all of the issues that confront us, bringing the economy back to stability and growth, we need to find new ways to help each other, share our stories, and build all kinds of collaboration. It's a time for innovative thinking and for acting in very different ways. So today, I'm absolutely thrilled to have with us Tracy Higginbotham. Tracy met me when I was up in Rochester speaking, I think. But I have given a webinar to her organization, Women Ties. Women Together Inspiring Entrepreneurial Success is what TIES stand for. And what Tracy brought to me is her passion to help women help women. And as you know, my new book is coming out in January, Rethink, Smashing the Myths of Women in Business. And we too are passionate about helping women grow and develop, build businesses, get equity in pay, and begin to see themselves as leaders as they are in this wonderful emerging new economy. I always put a positive spin even on bad things. Might as well. Lemons and lemonade aren't that far apart. But in today's world, we really need some innovative ideas. So let me tell you about Tracy, and then I'll let her tell you her story. Tracy is the founder and president of Women Ties. This is a company that specializes in promoting, publicizing, and uniting women entrepreneurs and their companies, both online and in person. But in 1995, Tracy created her first company, Five Star Events, and she'll tell you what it was like to do event marketing. I must tell you, I met some event marketers the other day at a workshop I was conducting, and they have no work. And they're trying to figure out how to reinvent themselves as a gaming company. What can they do differently now that they're all virtual and nobody's showing up for events of any kind? For the auto industry, doesn't matter. So this was at a time where getting together and networking and celebrating at an event was the way we did it. And then in 2011, I'll go back a bit. In 2005, she formed Women Ties, and the whole point was to create a geographic buying network for women business owners. And then she added to that in 2011 a division at Women Ties called Women's Athletic Network, and she'll tell you a little bit about how she got into that. I've heard the story a little bit, and you're going to enjoy it. And then in 2017 and 18, she was contracted by 261 Fearless, a global running organization, to really bring running to women and women to running. She'll tell you all about the pieces in between, some of her own journey. But the journey is important because as a woman helping a woman, what she is all about is, and her strong purpose is helping women help each other. And I do think that's a message for today that couldn't be more important, powerful, timely. But the question is how. So today's talk is going to be a little bit about Tracy and her journey, a lot about what Women Ties is doing and what she sees happening, and then some ideas about what you can do to help women survive and thrive during these fast-changing times. Tracy, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Andi, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I enjoyed doing the webinar for you and your folks. I thought maybe we could reciprocate and have you tell our folks about yourself, your own journey, make it come alive. I can give them facts, but you have a fascinating life and I want to share it. Please.
Oh, thank you. Well, I would say if I'm going to make it colorful, then I will start by saying that I grew up in my parents' ski shop that they started in the late 1960s. So I grew up never realizing that entrepreneurship was possibly going to be a career option. But then when I look back, my aunt also was an entrepreneur back in the late 1960s. And my other aunt worked for small businesses. And of course, when you're young, or even when you're in your teens and I was in college, I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. It really wasn't until I was 30 years old. I was in higher education and I had my two beautiful sons. And I thought that I could be a corporate woman and a mother, and that was my intention. And then all of a sudden, these big brown eyes looked at me and I said, the heck with that, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. I'm going to take what I absolutely love, which was event planning at the time. That's what I did in higher education. and make it my own, so that I, like a lot of other women entrepreneurs at that time, and still today, could have flexibility in their life. So many people look at like an Oprah Winfrey and think, I want to be Oprah. And I think with that comes like success and recognition and money. But honestly, when we surveyed a lot of women entrepreneurs, this was back in 1995 when I created my first company, 5-Star Events. It really was about that flexibility. It was not about making a lot of money. I remember saying to my husband, I'm going to make money and I'm going to stay home and watch our kids. But it wasn't about making millions of dollars at that time. So really, I was lucky to be a pioneer, at least up here in central New York, of women that had home-based businesses. We didn't have technology. Zoom did not exist. I would not be here speaking with you on this podcast and having this wonderful time, because back then you met in person at restaurants. We stood up and we talked about talked about our businesses, and I always brought an educational component to it. And that was 1995. By the time my reign ended as a head of this local women's business group, we had gone from 8 members to 160 members in a short period of time. And I stopped doing that because I was getting requests from women all over central New York to bring those programs to them.
Interesting.
And that organization was not built to do that. So I created Women Ties as a way to connect women across New York State. And I've become, as you age, I've become more of a feminist, I guess is the best way to put it, even though, again, my role models were feminists. My mother was, before she started the business with my father, was a football coach. She was 5'2", came out as a physical education major and had to teach boys wrestling and boys football. And she was like, okay, we'll do it. Let's do it. I can do it. I'm a woman. So my whole life really was led by that. And then the feminist part of me came through when all of a sudden I just got incensed that women don't make as much as men do, and that there is not a pay equality law. And so I realized through Women Ties, which I started in 2005, so 10 years after 5-Star Events, that I could create a feminist buying circle in a way, and to create a stronger economic connections between women, no matter where they lived across New York State, because I physically wanted to do events and bring them still together. My website was the way for women to find out who to hire online, but I physically felt like I needed to be at events in order to connect them and have them really make those kind of bonds. And now with the pandemic, Zoom is the way, as you were talking about the event planning industry, I just wrote a blog post this morning about embracing the screen, embracing screen time, and that people are exhausted with Zoom meetings, but how else are we going to do it until things get better? So,
and I'm doing all my work and I'm not standing on my feet. My feet don't hurt. And I said, oh, I never thought of that, but my back doesn't hurt. My feet don't hurt. I just have to make sure I walk in between. But to your point, Zoom fatigue is a state of mind.
Yes.
And I do think that they're angry that they can't socialize and see each other and have a drink, but get over it.
Right.
Please continue.
And I always said to the women that came, and we mostly did luncheons, and what I would always say to them, it's great that we're all here. It is great that we are networking, but I produce something called a signature sales contact list. And in that list are the names and addresses, phone numbers, business, websites of all the women at my events. And I say to them, it was great we were here together. But the important thing is that you leave this meeting and you take that list and you make your follow-up phone calls in order to create these economic ties. So you have a little homework. I'm glad you had a good lunch, but you got some homework. And you have to remember to buy from women.
But that's interesting, because you push them past, that was a nice lunch, to doing something that is not a natural habit. I suspect they weren't even thinking about it. Right. And the point you're making is you must think about it, and now's the time to. So as Women Ties began to evolve and you evolved, what took place? How was it grown?
You know, it grew, it really grew geographically. I didn't have the intentions at first to be across New York State. I was thinking I would be here in Syracuse, which is where I'm based, producing it for women in this region, and maybe about an hour, half hour to an hour around me. So my first request was to bring Women Ties to Ithaca, which is about an hour drive south in the Finger Lakes. And then my next request was up to Oswego, which was about 45 minutes north, and then to Utica, Rome, which was about an hour to the east. And so there were women that were driving to Syracuse to these programs because now entrepreneurs have so many different events that they can go to. But at that time, there weren't a lot for women entrepreneurs.
Yep.
So these women coming from other regions really said to me, please, can you come to my city? And I said, you know, if you can get about 20 women to show, then I will be there. And really, there were women that believed so strongly in Women Ties and my mission and had the hunger for the programs that they created these regional opportunities for me. And that's really how Women Ties grew to the way it is now.
But talk about collaboration,
Oh, yeah.
inspiration. You know, I mean, there's only one of you, and so everyone else has to be you.
Right.
As if it's a multiplier and it's contagious.
Right. Right. You know, I couldn't, and I said this, I celebrate my 25th anniversary of being a woman entrepreneur on August 8th.
Wow.
So that is the day I officially signed my DBA for 5-star events, and Women Ties was 15 years on March 3rd. I have said to many of my members that I said, as an entrepreneur, you have this dream. You know, this is what I'm trying to create. I see it. I can feel it. I can be in the space. But unless other people believe in your mission and your purpose, you can't create it. As much as I wanted it, I needed those women to come and fill the seats at my events.
Yes.
And because they did that, and then they went and spread the news, I was able to go ahead and be multiple places, even though I was still always running my business as a solo entrepreneur.
So this is viral without being online viral. This is what humans do.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And I thank them for it because they created the dream.
Yes,
they ended up sitting in the dream and making the dream the reality.
So are women buying from women in your network and out of it? And what are the things that you're doing to help them see how to do this? It's one thing to say it, but you and I both know it's one thing to have a vision, as you did. It's another thing to begin to see it materialize, but then is it working? And how do we help people, particularly our listeners or our watchers, begin to see you too can help? This is a time for creating that equity and that parity among genders that can be really rich and almost explosive.
Right. I think that the story that comes to mind as soon as you ask me that question is I had an event in Rochester. I had asked, there was a female who was running a very successful, financially successful car dealership. And she was the only female in Rochester with this large, dealership. A lot of dealerships are owned by men. And she came to speak, and as usual, I started the event by explaining my mission and the buying, and that I encourage women to buy from women first and foremost, putting their money in the hands, the bank accounts, the Venmo accounts of women first and foremost to help the financial atmosphere today and for the future generation. And I'm speaking, and this woman is looking at me, and she has no facial expressions. And I'm thinking, oh my God, she thinks I'm weird. All the things that women think about. I'm just like, I'm not speaking well. What is it? Serious face. She comes up. I introduce her. She stands up and she says, Tracy. And I said, yes. She said, I have struggled to come up through the ranks in a male-dominated industry. I have never once thought of hiring female vendors for my company.
Oh my.
Her assistant, and she said, from now on, we will only hire female and do work with female vendors. And I still get chills. I was like, hallelujah. So, somebody with her kind of money was going to be able to make a financial impact. Go ahead.
But she's not alone, because I had a wonderful client And Linda was the head of a big division at Merck. She's
Mhm.
retired, and I did a second interview. She was a chapter in my first book, and I said, "Did you help other women?" And she said, I paid no attention. I didn't see that I was there to do two things: run the business successfully, but also to help women in that business.
Mhm.
And the message that you and I are both, and I'm pushing that out there, is that we do have a responsibility
Mhm.
to each other at a time when nobody else is going to take
Absolutely.
responsibility to help us. Please continue. That story must have turned your yes into a, oh my, I can do this, can I?
Yeah, it was because I think that, my members mostly understand what the mission is. And so I'm always trying to talk about it. But, changing the world as we see today, it's so difficult, to get a message out. And I realize that my pushing even my members to try to buy from women first and foremost, I can get some pushback because they'll say, well, Tracy, I have really great male vendors that I've been doing business with. And I'm like, fine, that's awesome. Go ahead and buy from them. But if you don't, or if you need to renew a contract, please consider doing it with a woman first, with hiring a woman first and foremost. I remember, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name right at the moment. She was like an attorney here in Syracuse, a lot to do with Now. She was the Now president. Her name's totally skipping my mind at the moment. I apologize. She's now deceased. And she came down and she did a lot with Gloria Steinem and everything. And she came down and I was so proud to tell her about Women Ties. She came down into my office and she said, Tracy, I've heard about this company, Women Ties, and you're encouraging women only to come to your events and only women to buy from women. And that's not how equality works. In order to change everything, we need men and women at the table. And I looked at her and I said, I appreciate that view, and I know you've done a lot to move that forward, but I only want women at my events, and until I can talk to them enough about seeing them doing something with other women and making a difference. And so, yes, I have seen that over the years. Many women in different regions are very close and do a lot of business with other women in other regions.
Well, but you're also a gap filler, because I appreciate her point also.
Yes.
We are living in a world where both genders are,
Yes.
And multiple races. However, if we don't overcome the barrier, the difference, and really think about intentionally helping each other.
Right.
I don't want to make a tribe out of it, but in some ways, nobody else is paying attention.
Right.
And if not, the guys would be perfectly happy if we went back home and took care of the kids,
Right.
even if there aren't any.
Absolutely.
And somehow we're supposed to figure out what to do in that role. But, in my book, I have 10 other women beside myself telling their stories about how they have smashed the myths about what women can or can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to tell Andi Kramer's story, because she was told when she was a kid in the elementary school that lady lawyers were awful. They never should be. She shouldn't even think about it. She'll never have a family, never have any children. Nobody will like her. Nobody likes lady lawyers. They don't hire. I mean, you can almost hear the guy telling her.
Right.
So what does she do? She became a very successful attorney, and she's helping other women overcome the bias in the workplace.
Yes. Right.
And then Stephanie Breedlove was told by her parents, don't leave Accenture and form your own company. That's not smart. Don't be an entrepreneur. You'll never make it. And she built a business doing nanny tax work, Breedlove and Associates, and sold her company to care.com for a lot of money. And now is helping other startups start up. Mm-hmm. But there's something, the reason I wrote the book was to give role models to other women that yes, you can.
Right.
Don't listen to the no, you can't. But You're going to have to help each other. And in the process, you're going to begin to see, I love multipliers, mm-hmm. because one, for you, it's not the 6 people or the 100 people, it's the 300 people. And now our job is to make it 3,000 people.
Right. Absolutely.
So as you look forward in this crazy time we're in, humans like to see what do you think is coming. What do you see coming?
Well, it's really interesting because I have always seen that women entrepreneurs really bond and make those extra special economic connections when they're in person. So this has been very interesting for me, knowing that everything has been Zoom, because again, you can't get into event space yet. An event that used to hold 50 people for me, now if you do the social distancing, can only hold a quarter of that or whatever you want to figure out. So I'm trying to listen to my customers to see what they need. But I think a lot of them, because they're aged, 40 to 65, are not as comfortable using technology. They're not comfortable coming online and talking on Zoom or learning on Zoom. So I think I have some education ahead of me to inspire and encourage women, at least for the time being, that they need to be comfortable with the media that we have in front of us in order to connect with women. And what I loved about my very first Zoom meeting, and I don't know if it was the one you were on, but it might have been the one afterwards, is that we had women from Canada, North Carolina, we had women from different places. And I physically would have never thought that I could ever reach those women because of it. But through this technology, you can meet more people.
That's right.
So there is an opportunity to grow your marketplace beyond your region or state.
Well, and Zoom fatigue is a state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 things I heard you say, one of which is I can reach lots more people in a bigger geographic area globally.
Yes.
That's exciting. I met somebody the other day who teaches music lessons for kids, and he had 38 instructors in Texas. And now he's across the country. They're jammed, and it's a very exciting time to learn music and to play it remotely. He said, who would have thought before this, could I have ever been a global organization? And I don't have enough instructors for all the folks everywhere who wanted it, but now it's easier to do it. So let's turn lemons into lemonade. And instead of arguing about Zoom, let's turn it into a new opportunity for those women to sell to women. Right. Think about what they can do now with e-commerce.
Yes.
Some of the women on that webinar that I did aren't into e-commerce yet.
Right.
And as I heard them, it was how fast can you get there? Because that's the way we're going to be shopping for a while, if not forever.
I know. Right. Absolutely.
And it's simple and easy.
Well, I learned that you mentioned 261 Fearless, which is the organization that was created by Catherine Switzer, the iconic first woman to officially enter and run in the Boston Marathon in 1967, who is one of my favorites. Talk about a change agent. She definitely was. And her organization's global because they wanted to bring running to women all over the world, especially to the women who aren't allowed to run, which you think is crazy when you think of the running the running environment here in the USA.
Yes.
So I learned the head of that, the CEO, was a woman from Austria.
Uh-huh.
So I had to get on my Zoom calls or my Skype, I think it was Skype at the time, and work with her from Austria. And then we had England, and we had Catherine in New Zealand, and all of this. And that's what opened my eyes to, oh my gosh, there's such a larger world out there if you use technology.
Well, and that's why the podcasts are global, and we have people from across the globe, everywhere. Right. And the joy of being able to share you is I couldn't do this if I had to do it in 50 people in a room. Right. And yes, it would be more intimate in some ways, but I'm not unhappy with the intimacy that we've been able to establish using Zoom, right?
I know, very true.
True. And I met your folks on that webinar, and I thought they were intimate people sharing lots of good stories about how their husband didn't want to expand yoga online, and how do you do acupuncture remotely? I mean, how clever and creative are we going to be to help each other now, right?
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. And sometimes it takes a major change in your personal life as an entrepreneur. I mean, I know this from being an entrepreneur for 25 years. Nothing stays the same. And I remember back when it was, I think 2008, when we had the financial crisis. And worrying about my members at that point in time, and that was only 3 years in. Would I even have a business if people weren't investing in women's ties? And then you have now, and then you have personal things that happen in between as an entrepreneur, medical things that happen to yourself or your family. So it really is always about change and adapting.
Yes.
And I think, and it was somebody, I don't think it was you. Now you're making me wonder if it was you. Somebody said, why look for the silver linings when you can go for the gold linings?
Yes.
Wasn't it you?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so good. We should be going for the gold linings. And in this situation, what can we do
That's right.
Who can we, I love the concept of entrepreneurship, and every time I do an event too, because it opens the door to this whole new world of people you would have never met before
Yes.
if you didn't say yes to an opportunity.
Yes.
And
that's important. I used to preach, I still do, that if you want to change, have a crisis or create one.
Yeah.
Because your brain fights change. And, talking about making change your friend means, how do I make something that I don't want to do and I fear and I flee into something that I really enjoy? And you and I both find that the vacuums are times for us to fill those gaps with innovative ideas.
Yes.
And it's a great time to think about, all of the words I hear. We're doing a whole program for a bunch of CEOs on how to stop fearing fear. Danger isn't fear. And how the fatigue that their HR folks are dealing with, because all this stuff is new and they don't know what to do and they feel uncomfortable with not having a routine. It is a time of change. So now we have to give them tools to do it, right?
I know. My favorite line, I'm going to go back to Catherine Switzer. I was nervous to meet her. We met by chance because I Googled fearless. I was looking for a speaker for one of my events and her name came up. I had no clue who she was, but so we got to know each other, and she was in New York City, and she invited me to come down as they were beginning to launch 261fearless.org, which is a global organization, and it was in New York City. And I had a good friend that died in one of the 9/11 planes, and I had been scared to go back to New York City. And she said, Tracy, I really want you to come. Do you know when you're fearless, you're free?
Yes.
And
wow.
I mean,
when you're fearless, you're free.
And that was part of her thing, because in her running, a man tried to push her out of the race. She was only a 20-year-old female, just trying to run the Boston Marathon, when women weren't allowed. And there's a whole story about her. I could go on, but that little quote of hers, and that's what she had to do during her race. She had to not be scared that they were going to try to kick her out. She had to keep running.
Yes.
And that's when she was free. And it's such a beautiful thought. So I said to myself, yeah, I'm going to miss all these opportunities if I'm scared to go to New York City. I've got to do it. So yeah, I hope that helps other people. Cannot credit it's KV Switzer who says that.
But it's Tracy Higginbotham who wants to share it. Tracy, we're just about ready to wrap up. I often ask our speakers a couple of things you want to remember. You want your listeners to remember, because they often remember the end better than the beginning.
Okay.
I love Switzer's comment, if you are fearless, you're free. And let's not go for the silver lining, let's go for the gold. And some other things that you might want to part with, so that folks who are listening, I will tell you that even men should buy from women. They could use a hand.
Yes.
And often, rather than think about pulling in somebody who looks and feels just like you, find somebody who could add value innovatively and provide a different perspective and be open to opportunities. Some last thoughts, ma'am.
Well, I think that's the most important thing for me to always share, is that, if we want to make the world 50-50, men do have, wives and daughters and granddaughters and nieces, and you never know who they're going to want to be. So looking at the world as a 50-50 opportunity in terms of equality, to me, is so important for anybody to think about.
Yes.
And again, for me, because I'm frustrated by the rate at which women aren't getting paid the same amount, is why I personally try to help eradicate pay inequality as I can through my mission. But if individuals can really think about the next time they go to purchase something, are they spending a certain percentage of their money with both sets of people? So if women are listening, are you spending, do you want to earmark a certain percentage of your income to go for hiring women or hiring men, or hiring a certain demographic, maybe older entrepreneurs or young girls coming out? I love mentoring young 20-year-old girls, the ones that have the little, I see myself in them, so I keep trying to inspire them. And so that's the other thing I would say too, is I think we should be able to give back. Part of our mission for our corporate mission, if it doesn't have some kind of community or societal focus, I think we should consider that.
Yes.
One of my favorite quotes is, what your life is what God gave you, but what you do with your life is what you give back to God. Yes. Whether you're religious or not, the point being that we're here on earth to not just serve ourselves and to make ourselves better, to be able to help others. And so be kind to customers. Choose a specific demographic of customers. If you're interested in supporting African-American entrepreneurs, make that a priority for yourself. So I would just say, think bigger about your life in terms of how you can help more people, different people, because it does broaden your horizons and your perspective and your outreach.
I could only tell our listeners what joy it brings to me to be able to share Tracy with you. Tracy is a very special woman whose mission I embrace, and it's time for us to help each other and help women as we come out of this period. It's a time of creative energy, and if you can turn lemons into lemonade, or someone said turn limes into margaritas, however you like it, it's a time to go for the gold, and there are great opportunities. Together is better than alone. So don't sit alone. See who you can embrace and embrace Tracy. If they want to reach you or become members of Women Ties, and it sounds like you don't have to be in New York in order to do it.
No.
How do they?
For women only. So I'm just going to have to say that, because I know you have a wonderful mixed group, and I have a husband and 2 sons, so I do love men. I've just been put on this earth to help women financially. They can find me at womenties.com, and they can go there to hire or hire women. You don't have to be in the same area. You can join Women Ties through Women Ties. I have a really great long-lasting blog I've been writing since 2008, and that's at womenties.blog. Women Ties being WOMENTIES. You can find me on Facebook. Women Ties has a Twitter. Women Ties has a Facebook. I'm a big marketing girl, so get a hold of me, and I'd be happy to help you or connect you if I can.
Women, stand up and reach out to Tracy. She's ready to help. So let me wrap. It's a good time to say goodbye to all of you. For those of you who are watching, my book, The Rethink, let me see if I can get this on here with my Zoom background. There we go. There we go. It's not so cool. There we are. Rethink, Smashing the Myths of Women with Business. It's out for pre-order now. So if you go onto Amazon and do Rethink, Andi Simon, you can pre-order us. And we are developing an online training program to help people, women, rethink who they are, where they're going, and how to do it. And so this will all be coming out in January, but the pre-sales, Amazon loves pre-sales, so help us with our pre-sales. It's great fun. Now, with that in mind, let me say goodbye. I wish you all to stay healthy and prosperous in these changing times. If I've helped you to get off the brink and soar, it's my pleasure. And Tracy's been here to help you as well. Don't forget, I love the emails. info@andisimon.com comes right to me. And it's a great time for us to collaborate, communicate, and really create. So stay with us and keep sharing. It helps when you share these. Listener volume is up to about 130,000 a month. I can't tell you how exciting it is to share. And it's fun to have it go across the globe. I wish you a great day. Please stay well. Bye now.